Hi friends, if this is your first time on my channel, you are most definitely welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, a loyal poo, thank you so much for sticking with your girl and coming back. Today, I'm gonna be talking about going to medical school for free or almost free. Honestly, if you click this video, that means you want to go to medical school for as little amount of money as possible. So Seun the scammer got you, and we're gonna talk about it. And I'm pretty sure I'm about to go on some schools hit list because I'm about to share some things that schools are not very transparent about or don't really tell you during your financial aid presentation at interviews. So after this video, I'm just gonna go run and hide because I don't want no one looking for me. I don't want no one coming for me because I'm about to drop all the tea. And if you're ready to hear the tea, stick around for this video. So before I get into talking about going to medical school for as little amount of money as possible, I think it's important to explain the cost of medical school so you guys understand. I get a lot of questions on Instagram and people aren't quite sure how you pay for things or kind of what medical school financial aid looks like. So basically there's tuition, right? So in undergrad, if you get a financial aid package, it usually says, you know, tuition, the fees, room and board, and any other things that maybe health insurance or something. And medical school is pretty much the exact same way, where schools charge tuition. A lot of tuition money is charged to you to be educated, right? But then they also have budgeted money for how much they think it's going to cost you to live in the area. So let's say, for example, we're going to Pooh University School of Medicine, right? And the tuition at that school is $65,000. That means it costs $65,000 to get an education there, right? To pay the school for educating you, you know, teaching you anatomy and all that kind of stuff. You gotta live. You need somewhere to live, right? And if you're not going to medical school near your house, you probably will need to get an apartment or maybe apply for school housing if your medical school has it. Not all medical schools offer dorms. Some do, but not all do. And you also have to like eat. You have to stay fed. They can't let you go hungry in medical school. I mean, they can, but no, I don't think they can. No, they can't make you go hungry in medical school. So then you have room and board. So the school has basically made some kind of calculation of how much they think it's gonna cost for you to live in the city or the area that they are in. Pooh University School of Medicine is located in New York City. Let's say that for, you know, just for kicks and giggles, right? New York City is pretty expensive to live. So perhaps I may budget that in this 1 year. Actually, and I want to point this out to you because this is really important actually. When you get your financial aid package from medical school, they most of the time are only budgeting you for 10.5 months of living, right? Because your first year of medical school is typically only about 10-11 months. So when they give you a financial aid package and when they give you, oh, this is how much we think you're going to spend on room and board, they're actually saying this is how much we think it's going to cost to live for 10 months here, right? With the assumption that you do something you're not living or you're not the school's responsibility during the summer, right? So New York is really expensive to live in. So for 10.5 months, I say maybe it's gonna cost about, let me actually do some real math. So let's say Pooh University School of Medicine has a dorm, right? And the dorm ideally is supposed to be the cheaper alternative to finding an apartment in New York City. And let's say I charge you $1,300 a month for rent. So $1,300 times 10 months is $13,000. So I'm already expecting you to spend about $13,000 just to have a roof over your head. But you also have to eat. You can't go hungry in these streets. So I also have to think about, well, how much do I think it's gonna cost you to feed yourself and all that kind of stuff? So let's say you spend, and this may not be realistic, right? Because I know I spend up to maybe like $400 on groceries a month when I was living back in Palo Alto. I did spend a lot of money on groceries. But let's say you spend $300 on groceries a month, right? $300 times 10 is $3,000. So I'm expecting you to spend $3,000 to eat, $16,000 for room and board, right? So I'm thinking it's gonna cost you $16,000 just to live, baseline. And also in financial aid packages, you'll see they may account for, this person may have some personal expenses. Maybe they have to buy a computer or an iPad or, you know, something else comes up. So I'm gonna budget $4,000 for personal expenses. And then health insurance is optional. Well, health insurance is not optional. You need to have health insurance, but taking the school's health insurance is optional. So let's say POO University is like, if you want our POO coverage, it's $5,000 for the month, for the year, excuse me. By the time you add all this stuff up, so let's see, we have $65,000 for tuition, we have $16,000 for living and eating, we have $4,000 for personal expenses, and then we have $5,000 for insurance. You're looking at $90,000 for the year to go to POO University School of Medicine for this first year. Now, the next question is, how do you pay for that? If you are big pimping and your parents got money and you're just rolling in dough, then you can just stop watching this video because your parents can pay. Now, if you're like me, who God bless our parents, but we're out here hustling in these streets on our own, you're gonna have to figure out, how am I gonna pay for this? Now, there are 3 ways that you can typically pay for school. The first one is pay out of pocket. So you get some money from your bank account or your parents' bank account and you pay. The second one is loans, and this is typically the most common one. So you borrow some money from the government that we do not stand right now. You borrow some money from the government and you say, hey POO, your girl wants to go to medical school. I don't have the money right now, so I'm gonna need you to throw me some cash to pay the school. So you can take out loans. Now, the last way you can pay is scholarships. You can apply for scholarships to fund your education, or maybe the school may give you scholarships. And I'm kind of going to talk more about the loans and the scholarships in this video, but more so on the scholarships, because I'm here to talk to you about how to go to medical school for free. For the most part, unless you have $90,000 in your bank account, you are assuming that you're going to take out $90,000 in loans to pay for your first year of medical school. Now, in case you don't know, loans is not free money. You have to pay that back when you're done with school, and you'll end up paying more. The $90,000 you borrow is your principal. However, depending on where you get your loan from, whether it be the federal government or a private loan from a bank, they have different interest rates, meaning from the moment you take out the loans, they are charging you interest for borrowing that money. So while you may have borrowed $90,000 initially, what you will owe on that $90,000 in 4 years is going to be an additional couple $1,000s. If you're like me and are pretty debt averse and don't really like thinking about owing almost $400,000 for your medical education by the time you graduate, you can look into scholarships. And I want to talk about ways to navigate that and ways to pay attention so you can maximize how much scholarship money you get and ways to get into medical school for free. And I want to clarify something before I move on that I think can become confusing. So $90,000 will be the full cost of attendance to attend POO University School of Medicine. The tuition cost of the school is $65,000, right? So there's a difference between cost of attendance and tuition. Cost of attendance means how much you have to pay towards the entire experience, right? So not only tuition, not only fees, but also feeding and all that kind of stuff. Tuition is just paying towards your school bill, literally just tuition. The first one is to apply to tuition-free schools. So we're seeing schools come up now where they are either offering full tuition, like free tuition schools, to incentivize students not only to come to their school but to pursue primary care, right? Because we have a shortage of primary care doctors, so a lot of schools are trying to incentivize people to go into primary care because it is one of the lower paid specialties in medicine. So by incentivizing people to go to school for free, they're hoping more people will choose primary care. So you can apply to tuition-free schools. One of the most notable schools, and a school that I did interview at during my application cycle, was Kaiser. Kaiser is a tuition-free school, and they're tuition-free only for their first 4 classes, I believe. Now, if you apply to tuition-free schools, you're covered with tuition, and the next thing you have to think about is your living costs, right? How to eat, how to pay for housing and all that kind of stuff. Because remember, like I previously said, that tuition-free is not necessarily mean cost of attendance free. That's not what it necessarily means. It means tuition has been covered. Now, I know schools like Kaiser offer grants where you can apply for the grants and they will give you scholarship money to cover your living cost, or alternatively, you can take out private loans, right? It kind of depends on you. I'm not at Kaiser, so I don't exactly know, and I don't want to speak to what's happening there, but this is based off of what they told us during the presentation and my interview. Because there's not a lot of schools that offer free tuition. You can apply to schools that do offer sizable scholarship amounts. So there are schools, whether they tell you or not, that do offer full tuition scholarships as well as full cost of attendance scholarships as well. And it's up to you to do your research and talk to students to find out what schools do that. If you go on my Instagram page, you will find I have created a little list of some schools that do offer it, so you can start there, but it's fully up to you to do your research to find out. But if you apply to schools where you know that they offer scholarship and you know that you may be eligible for those scholarships, then you should apply. And that's also why I encourage my poos and tell people to do really well in school, because some medical schools only offer merit-based scholarships, meaning that they will look at your application compared to the rest of the pool who got accepted and see if you're eligible for merit-based aid. That's why I always say do really well in school, do really well on your MCAT, have some strong extracurriculars so you can be in the running for these scholarships, because it is one thing to get into medical school, it's another thing to get into medical school and get scholarships. And that's something that I feel like a lot of us don't think about until we've actually gotten in and we're trying to figure out how are we going to pay for this, you know? So it's really important to start thinking about this now. It's also important to look at schools that offer need-based scholarship as well. So there are schools that will look at your need, they'll look at your FAFSA, your financial aid, they'll look at your parental information, they'll look at your information and determine whether you have a high need and may offer you scholarships based on your need, right? If you know you are coming from a low income background and you think that need-based scholarship may be applicable to you, apply to schools that offer that, so that way you can feel or maybe have that sense of assurance that if I apply to the school based off of what the financial aid office says and based off of what they have on their website, I may be eligible for these need-based scholarships. Now I will say one trick, because remember I said not all schools will advertise this or tell you this, right? So some schools will automatically review every single person that gets into their school for these scholarships, and some may not. Some you may actually have to apply to. Like I know schools like Frank H. Netter School of Medicine require you to apply to the scholarships after you've gotten in. Be on the lookout for that. I know after I got into a lot of medical schools, I was just emailing Dean of Admissions, emailing the financial aid office, asking them if there were any scholarships I was eligible for or that I could be reviewed for. The worst thing that they could do is say no, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't shoot. So I say email the schools once you get in and ask them if there are any scholarships. And I encourage you to do that earlier on in the cycle rather than later, because as time goes on, seats are being filled and money is being taken, you know? So it's really important to the moment you get into school, enjoy it, take, you know, a couple weeks to yourself, but then ask, hey, do you have any scholarships I can apply for? And some of these schools also will tell you if you got a scholarship. So sometimes with your admission, they'll say, welcome, we are accepting you and we're also granting you this full tuition scholarship, right? So sometimes you don't have to ask, they just give it to you, which is the best case scenario. The next thing I would say is negotiate your financial aid package. And this is so important. I feel like a lot of people don't realize the power in asking. You never know unless you ask, right? And that's why it's so important to shoot your shot, right? So some schools, not all, will match financial aid packages from other schools. So let's say you have 3 schools that you're really interested in, that you really want to go to, and school A has said, we will give you full tuition for all 4 years. And you're like, okay, school A, I see you out here trying to claim me. Y'all must really want me. But you're like, you know what? I kind of like school B a little bit better than school A, but school B, you know, was playing your girl. School B only gave me half tuition scholarship for 4 years. Let me tell them about school A to see if that's gonna, you know, shift the curve a little bit. And you say respectfully and humbly, you send an email saying, hey, you know, I'm really excited about your school. I love what you stand for and I really see myself coming here. However, finances are a huge factor in how I'm deciding where to go to school. I've been granted a full tuition scholarship offer from another school, and while I'm so grateful for the half tuition I've been offered already, I wanted to know if there's any flexibility to negotiate the package, or if you're willing to give me a little bit more money to make my decision easier. You can negotiate your package. They will not tell you this, but you can. Some schools will say no and some schools will match that. I know when I was applying to some schools, I didn't name drop until it got necessary to. For the most part, I would email schools saying, I've gotten some competitive offers from other schools, you know, and I really want to be here, so you just let me know. The ball's in your court, Pooh. I'ma just drop this right here and let you know. So you can negotiate your financial aid package, and you're not entitled. I want to make this very clear. You are not entitled entitled to any money from any school. However, you can humbly ask, right? The worst that they can do is say no, but they will not take away your acceptance. So it never hurts to at least try to negotiate your packages. The next thing I would say is apply to national scholarships. So there are some big scholarships that will pay for your tuition for medical school for all 4 years, as well as give you a stipend for your living expenses. Now, these scholarships, these national scholarships are competitive, and a lot of people are applying to them because who doesn't want to go to medical school for free? It's really important to ask yourself, is this what I want to do, and do I meet the requirements? So like the National Health Service Corps offers a full tuition scholarship with a living stipend for however many years you may ask for when you apply. However, you do owe it back in service. So nothing is really free. While you may not have to pay money, you do have to pay back with your time. And the NHSC is a scholarship dedicated towards encouraging people to go into primary care. So they have a list of specialties that you are required to pick from if you are selected for the scholarship. So if you know primary care is for you, if you know you want to be an OBGYN, if you know psychiatry is for you, right? And you know that you will be okay with working in an underserved community for 4 to 6 years, you should be applying scholarships like this if you know that this is what you want to do. That's why I say it's really important to think about it, because applying to scholarships like this and ultimately taking the scholarship is a legal obligation, right? The moment you have signed and said, hey, I'm gonna take your money to pay for my medical school, you go owe in service, and you have to be willing to read the terms of that contract and make sure that this is something you believe you can fulfill in 4 years. There's also another scholarship from the military, which if you serve in the military as a doctor, they will pay for your education as well. Equally with that one, to my understanding of military scholarships, is you may or may not be able to do the specialty you want to do. It really depends on the needs of the military by the time you are applying for residency. There is one other scholarship that has recently come up this year, is also through the Veterans Affairs, where they will pay full tuition for all 4 years of medical school and give you a living stipend. However, you have to work in the Veterans Affairs hospital or clinic. Look at these national scholarships and make sure that you are eligible and you can fulfill the contract requirements for those scholarships. Another way is look for local scholarships. Like, I feel like a lot of people sleep on local scholarships. Like, everyone's aiming for the big full tuition ones, but do not sleep on a $6,000 scholarship. $6,000 is a lot of money and literally can pay for your moving cost if you're moving away from medical school. It can cover getting a new computer. It can cover like you furnishing your apartment. Like, do not sleep on these local scholarships. There are scholarships that want to help you pay for your education in some form or fashion. You have to look for them, right? So they may be local ones saying, like, if you are an African American woman who lives in Massachusetts, this scholarship is for you and you're going into STEM, right? I know when I was looking for scholarships, I found this one particular scholarship. It was so crazy. I think a friend sent it to me actually, where you had to have been a resident of Massachusetts, you have to have been a woman, and you have to have been going into STEM field, right? And you apply for the scholarship. And to me, I didn't know how much the amount was, but I was like, you know what? Money is money. We're not asking no kind of questions. And I applied to the scholarship and I got it. And that scholarship helped fund my moving cost to move to medical school. And it helped me with all the startup costs that I wasn't even thinking about moving with medical school, right? So do not sleep on these local scholarships. Like, there's so many indirect costs with medical school that we don't even think of until they happen. So if you know that there are scholarships in your area, maybe your local sorority graduate chapter has a $500 scholarship, or maybe there's a $10,000 scholarship somewhere, apply to them. All of them count. Imagine if you applied to 4 different $10,000 scholarships, right? That's $40,000. You literally pay like mostly your tuition there. So do not sleep on these local, smaller scholarships, because the money does add up. The next thing I was gonna say is look for scholarships throughout medical school. So this is not just for my poos who haven't started medical school. If you're already in medical school, all hope is not lost. You can find scholarships throughout, but it requires you to be diligent and put in that time and work to look for them throughout the years, right? There are scholarships that are only offered to like second-year medical students or third-year medical students or fourth-year medical students, right? So look into those scholarships. Even if it's $5,000, That's $5,000 less you will owe to the federal government in a couple years. So think about that, right? Don't just stop your scholarship search when you get into medical school. Make sure you are looking for scholarship money throughout medical school. It is so important. Every dollar counts. The cost of going into medicine is so expensive and is a huge barrier for so many people who cannot financially afford applying, getting in. So why not help yourself by applying to these scholarships? A lot of this is self-work. Like, this money is not going to be thrown at you. You have to look for it. Nobody's going to wave $60,000 in your face, but you have to go look for it. So it's really important to take the initiative. If you are currently applying to medical school, you should be looking for scholarships while you are applying, because one of the mistakes I made was I didn't start looking for scholarships until like months after I had gotten in, and some of the deadlines had already passed, or like they were too close for me to work on. So as you're applying, as you're interviewing, look for scholarships. Apply to them, especially before you get into medical school, because it's going to be harder to, you know, spend time to invest in applying to these scholarships in medical school. So do some of the work up front by looking for these scholarships. If you go on my website, if you guys haven't been on my website, if you go on my website, you will find a scholarships tab where I have a whole bunch of PDFs and stuff that I've collected from different sources of scholarships that you may be able to apply for, because you know I'm trying to help everybody go to school for the free $99, or at least almost free. And to be honest, if you're able to get even just full tuition, that's money saved, right? Imagine if you get full tuition, that's about $200,000 almost you've saved at that point, you know? And all of this counts, and you want to be able to be financially free. You want to be able to graduate medical school with as little debt as possible. That should be your number one goal. Graduating medical school with as little debt as possible. Not only so you can enjoy the money you will be making in a few years, but also so you can pay off the little that you do owe in a small amount of time as well, right? Imagine owing only $100,000 versus $300,000. It's so important to think about this stuff, and I feel like a lot of pre-meds don't really think about this until like they're like, oh snap, I have a $100K bill and I don't know what to do with this, you know? So I really want to encourage you guys to start thinking about this stuff now. Do your work now, and if you do, you'll be so happy with yourself that you did. I promise you, you will be. Anyways, I hope this video was really helpful to you guys. Comment below, let me know if you learned something new that you did not know before. I want to kind of see if this video was helpful. If you have any helpful advice for students who are in medical school, comment below. If you know of schools that do offer scholarships, comment below as well. We are trying to share. We're trying to share the tea that medical schools will not tell you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you guys in another video. We stand.